Excuse me? Did you just ask what was BGK Network for? I'm glad that you asked. Let me get the number up because I know you're going to call. So BGK was founded by Michael. What happened to the number? The number's at the top of the screen now. But anyway, get the number. As I was saying, BGK Network was founded by... It's at the bottom of the screen. Really? Really? Okay. I'm sorry for calling you Michael. Apostle, just put me back where I can talk. Just put me back, please. Wow, some people are so sensitive, right? But seriously, what you just saw was a sample of what Apostle Michael Dulaney and Evangelist Tiffany can do through virtual ministry with BGK Network. They founded BGK to help people like you and myself to put the gospel out around the world. It's a great opportunity. I do encourage you to call the number. It's more affordable than you think. Give them a call. I did.
Welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. I'm your host, Dr. Ramona Joseph, more commonly known as Dr. Mom, and I'm so happy that you joined me for this edition of Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. Before we get into speaking with my guests, I want to let you know about some forthcoming presentations. We're going to be talking with the executive director and the program director of a substance abuse facility on our forthcoming presentations. We're going to be talking to them about what actually happens to the family when someone is involved in substance abuse and how substance abuse facilities can become helpful in helping a family be reunited to normalcy. Going to be talking with one of my spiritual daughters. She hasn't confirmed yet, but we're going to be talking about domestic violence, male and female domestic violence in marriage. And then we're going to have some interesting conversations. I'm going to be talking to you about pre-marriage counseling, marriage counseling, and pastoral family counseling that I do, and some of the things that I would be presenting to you as your pastoral counselor. And then I got some interesting shows. I told you, we're not here to spice up your marriage. We're here to talk about some real issues. What happens when grandma and grandpa want to get married? Your grandfather, my grandmother, they want to get married and they're older. How do they manage a marriage? They just don't go ahead and jump the broom like they were 25 or 30 years of age. There are lots and lots of complications that come along with those sorts of things. So I've got a host of wonderful shows planned for you for your benefit. And so I'd like for you to do me a favor. I'd like for you not to be the only people watching Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. I want you to help me by securing at least 5 people every Thursday at 6:30 to watch along with us as we bring you some dynamic people, some interesting conversations, and some things I think that are going to provide you with a lot of help and hope for your future. Additionally, if you would like to submit some questions to me about marriage and the family, how about emailing me at rjjoseph920@gmail.com. That's rjjoseph, and it's appearing on your screen, 920@gmail.com. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions. Just send them to me and I'll answer them during our presentations. And if there's some topics that you would like for me to discuss and talk about, why not send me that email, rjjoseph920@gmail.com. Well, enough about those things that I wanted wanted to present to you before we got into our guest. He was my guest on a previous presentation. His name is Pastor P.Shaffer. He is a spiritual son, and I'm so excited to invite him into the studio of Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. He's an awesome young man, works out of Chicago, Illinois, City of Faith Church in Chicago, Illinois, but he's doing some advanced degree work at Howard University in Washington, D.C. So very proud of you, Pastor. So happy you could join us for the second
Okay.
presentation. How are you feeling?
I'm wonderful. I'm
How are
glad
you
to be
feeling?
here.
Okay, all right. And after the last presentation, those of you that saw the previous presentation, he alluded to the fact that he was just a little boy sitting on the back seat of a car listening to me on the radio on a presentation called Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. So I owe you for that, son. Okay.
Well,
In our
or maybe
previous
I wasn't that young.
presentation,
A little
oh, well, you
older.
said it on the original
Yeah.
presentation. Oh, I was just a little boy, okay. In our previous presentation, you and I both like to have a lot of fun. So, on our previous
Hmm.
presentation, you opened up and you talked about the pain that you experienced 20 some odd years ago when
Hmm.
after 5 years of marriage, the marriage ended with all of the hopes and dreams that you and the young lady had purposed. How do you believe men get over the trauma of divorce? Because we always think it's just women dealing with the trauma of divorce. And I say trauma because it is
Hmm.
a traumatic experience.
Sure. Um, for me, what I discovered was that there wasn't a lot of language for men to process in the church and outside of the church. Um, if you go
Yes.
into the grocery store, there's a million magazines about women and how to deal with breakups, and there were women, Christian women, who were writing about their relationships. But there wasn't a whole lot of text and language for men, um, and I was very attracted to what I wasn't hearing, because I think in some ways in society and even in church, men are dehumanized in such a way and caricatured in such a way that it's like we don't feel anything. Like we
Mm-hmm.
work and
Yes.
we give and we're stoic, and there's no place for us to go with our emotions, especially when they're damaged. And so for me, the turning point was I had a very good friend, and I think after a couple of years, we would get together once a week, and he said, "You know what? You're not getting any better. You need to sit down and talk with someone." And he gave me a number of a therapist, and I tell you, it was the best decision that I had ever made, because I needed to be in a place that did not consider my title, my church history, my religion, my devotion, just a space that was about me and my emotions and my history and my trauma, and help me to work through that. And so I'm a big advocate for mental health, especially for black men,
Yes.
especially for black men like me who realized that I had suffered with depression since I was a child. Um, and so I came into it with some things that I wasn't even aware. I came into marriage with some things I wasn't even aware of about myself. Um, and so
Okay.
that space for me was crucial. That I would not be here having this conversation with you and where I am in my life if I had not made that decision to get into therapy.
Yes, yes. And so I want to just reiterate what you're saying is that many times all of what we're dealing with is the women that are traumatized by divorce, and not necessarily the men that have the pain and the trauma. We'll just move on. Men. It just seems as though men move on, and many times men do move on unsuccessfully to another relationship and another relationship and another relationship, when in fact, if there was some therapy, if there was the ability to be able to have conversations with professionals, they would possibly be able to unpack some of the issues that maybe they grew up with, maybe issues that have impacted their life and will continue to impact their life. So I thank you for your open honesty. I want everyone to understand that yes, pastors have a depression. You can look in the Bible, and we can see our beloved prophet Elijah, who was suffering with major depression. Depression is not anything that is a bad situation. It's bad when you run to a substance, or you run to something outside of yourself, and finding out what the issues are that are going on with you. So I think that many times when people think about depression, they think about a suicide ideation, that somebody is going to kill themselves, when depression can be that you're smiling all the time, but very, very sad on the inside, many times. So you were having some emotional impact from your divorce. You did eventually thank God for that friend who spoke to you and said, in other words, as God, I believe, speaks to the prophet Samuel, he says, "How long are you going to grieve over what I've done?" Truly, sometimes we feel as though it's something that we did in our marriage. I know I felt like, okay, what didn't I do? What did I do that was so wrong that my marriage ended in divorce? Not that I instituted the divorce, but that someone wanted to divorce me. How could you want to divorce me? I'm doing everything. I'm cooking. I'm cleaning. I'm Susie Homemaker, so to speak. And so, and that's generally in the church. People, well, what did you do? Well, tell us what you did.
Sure.
We always want to find somebody to fault. I want to point a finger at someone or something, other than just simply saying that there were too many issues that we couldn't overcome to live happily ever after.
Sure.
What's your thinking about that? Do you feel as though
Um,
sometimes there are just far too many issues?
sure. And I like how you frame that, because as Christians, right, we think there's causality to these things, right? If Job loses everything, his friend says, "Well, you must have done something," or Jesus, when they bring the blind boy to him, he says, "Well, how come this kid is blind? Did his parents do something?" That
Yes.
we're all as humans trying to figure out and wrap our mind about that. Well, if I'm saved and I love God and I am good, then only good things will ever happen to me. And so when we play by all the rules and we're dutiful, and it doesn't turn out, the equation doesn't turn out with what we want, it's like, well, what did I do? Did they do? The devil did it, or God did it, right? And so I
Yes.
totally understand that impulse, but I do understand that there are human reasons, right? There are just, life comes at you in ways in which sometimes you're just not prepared as a person, and sometimes your relationship isn't strong enough to withstand it. And sometimes it's nobody's
Yes.
fault. It is just what happens. And so I think as you get older, you stop pointing fingers and you're kind of more embracive of the fact, well, this is a part of life, and the way in which I can see grace and I can experience
Yeah.
compassion, and I learn a few lessons, and I'm more empathic to others who have lost, to understand that there's commonality between all of it. It makes us more human, right? And so,
Yes.
um, I, that's the way I kind of see wisdom in that for myself.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that when we have these things happen to us, it gives us, it's our greatest learning opportunity. And then it becomes our greatest witnessing. You cannot
Mm,
tell me that God's going to feed me unless you've ever been hungry. So how do I talk to someone that's been married 27 years and then divorced? How do you talk to someone that's married for 5 years and and it didn't work out unless you've been there? I can talk to a mother who's lost a child, because I was pregnant and I didn't come home with a baby. I lost that baby. So
mm,
I can
mm,
speak out of my own, out of where I have been. And I think that so many times we are looking at unreal situations, and we're looking at people that are trying to tell other people how to survive in a situation that they have no knowledge about.
true.
And that's really a tragic situation. So you went to therapy, you found someone to talk to, and then you were picking up your life and you were moving on. And part of what you were moving
Mm,
on with, when I met you, of course, you were an ordained elder, and we were both in the same ministry at that particular time. And you said that God had called you to organize a ministry called City of Faith. And I know that it's different. It's very different when you do have a spouse that you can talk with, and your spouse is working alongside of you in
mhm.
ministry. Did you ever have periods of time as you were organizing City of Faith that you wish that you had had a wife, a spouse, to have bounced off some ideas of varied things that maybe you wanted to share? Did you feel as though there was a part of you that was missing as a senior leader without that helpmeet, so to speak?
Um, Not in the beginning. I think in the beginning, all of the adrenaline and energy is pushing you to organize, to start a lot of conversations with people on a lot of different levels about you go here, you go there. I think that once the ministry started and I got into it, and you experience the taxation to your soul and your spirit and your body,
Yes.
um, then it was like coming home was very empty, and it was very quiet, and I didn't have anybody to share this space with, my fears, my concerns, how vulnerable I was feeling at the moment. I felt like, you know, everything and everybody was coming at me. And I remember coming home after church and maybe wouldn't leave the house for a couple of days just with all the lights off, just feeling trying to find some safety and kind of get away from everything and everyone. And so I think it was on the other side of that where I realized, like, oh, this is why having a partner in this space matters, right? This is why, and you can do ministry, and I don't see being single as an impediment because I understand Christ as our single savior. I do understand that he only did it for 3 years though. Like there was a you can't do it. Like he didn't do it forever. He was just a amount of time. So I wouldn't recommend it. But I do understand that having someone in your space to encourage you, to talk to you, to get you out of your own head, to be another eyes for you, another brain for you, whether you're in ministry or whether you're in life. I mean that matters. And so yeah, I
Yes.
definitely felt it on the other side of organizing the church.
Okay. One of my previous guests, Apostle Sharon, Sharon Peters Ruff was sharing with us about after 20 years of marriage, her husband died, and I had prophesied to her while he was well and healthy, what are you going to do when God has you take over this ministry? And she just, did not even hear or entertain what I had said. Ultimately, her husband did die, and she had to take over the ministry. And she talked about the loneliness of not having. She talked about the loneliness while she was grieving, but she talked about the loneliness of not having that other person to converse with, not having that marital partner to be able to talk to. And she said, well, we were married before he even got the call for pastoring. So I missed the coffee time. I missed the time when he would bring me a cup of coffee in the morning, and I couldn't drink coffee, she said, because I missed so much him making the coffee. Coffee just didn't taste right. In your relationship, yes, at first, as you said, there was all the adrenaline. I had been pastoring. I pastored the church for 15 years. So I had been pastoring for well over 10 years. There was time. So I was in the momentum of pastoring, but then I had to think in terms of how what am I supposed to do next? I don't have that person to talk to about the next thing that I'm going to do. So now you're in the momentum. You are expressing that there are the lonely times when you don't have a life partner to talk to. So let's just put it right out there. I talked to my colleague today, who was a former Catholic priest, and he was sharing with me. He said, "You'll just never know how vulnerable men in the ministry are when they have no wife." And he says, as a Catholic priest, I was vulnerable to single women who thought they could just get me out of the priesthood. So let's put it out there, Pastor. Did you have any women that, they really came there to City of Faith because they wanted to be the First Lady?
So looking back over my shoulder, I could see it now. I think I had a lot of tunnel vision at first, because I had made a covenant with myself and with our board of directors that I wasn't going to come to church and flirt and date and molest and go through all of those changes. And I remember saying to them, if you see me engaging someone inappropriately, you have the right to come to me and talk to me about it. If you see someone engaging me improperly, you have the right to come to them. And I was very, very strict about, just because I'm single doesn't mean I'm available. And I didn't come to church to date you, to flirt with you. This is not Sunday morning worship, is not our time to have our intimate experience with one another. This is ministry, and this was my vocation. And so I took it very seriously. Now, looking over my shoulder, I could see now, like, oh, perhaps, well, not even perhaps, that's exactly what it was. But I tell you this, coming into the pastorate, I didn't think that marriage could work doing ministry. And it was because the prior years, before I started pastoring, I got to observe up close certain situations, and not just in Chicago, but around the country. I was behind the scenes and watching some of these relationships, and I saw that they were unhappy. I saw that some pastors use church as the only place that would affirm them, love them, give them attention, and they hated going home, and that's why they stayed on the road all the time. And they were very comfortable being in a room full of people, but being with their partner, their companion, or even with their kids, they were very, very uncomfortable. And I saw the toll and the tax that it takes on a marriage, especially when you build, an institution and all of the weight collects on you and your family. And I just didn't see, and I guess at that time, I took for what I saw. I was like, well, this doesn't seem like it works because y'all don't seem very happy here. Now, of course, there are other images that are very healthy that they found a way to make it
Yes.
work. But in my situation, I saw like, I don't know if she's that much of a. I was looking at their wives like, like I don't know. It doesn't seem to be the upside to this for you. I don't know. And so I came into pastoring, being single, knowing that I wasn't going to do some unethical, immoral things in my congregation, and then thinking to myself that perhaps for me it was either do ministry or be married because it doesn't seem like blending those things together. At that time, I didn't see how they could work.
Exactly, exactly. I was
Mm.
privileged to be at a large conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, before I moved there, and there was a roundtable discussion, and one of the young men asked and raised his hand and said, "I want to ask you bishops because I'm single." What is your opinion about me dating, and especially dating in my church? And several of these guys raised their hands and they said, "Oh, it's fine, no problem dating in your church." And I tell you, Mother Joseph, Dr. Mom, whatever y'all want to call me, I stood up and I said, absolutely not. Because what
Mhm.
happens is you're going to create some issues within your church and within your ministry, and you're going to create some issues with a lot of women in the congregation that are going to be hurt, disenfranchised by your actions. And of course, I wasn't thought of too highly because I went against what these bishops were saying. So
Mhm.
I admire you for the posture that you have taken through the years and what you have done with City of Faith Ministry. Can I just simply tell you how totally proud I am of you? I'm proud to have served as one of the originals in the formation of your ministry. Continue to do the great work that you're doing with City of Faith in Chicago. We're looking forward to hearing all about that advanced degree. Can I just ask you, will you come back and visit us again on Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family?
I will if you come to my podcast, and you come and hang out with me, and then I'll definitely come hang back out with you. I'd love to.
All right, you got me. I definitely, anything that I can do, I will be glad to do it. So thank you once again. And I'd like to thank you for sharing with us for Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. This has been a wonderful opportunity to spend some time with you and to let you know how much we do value the institution of marriage and how we want to see men and women thrive in their marriage. We don't want to see you have strife in your marriage. We want to see you thrive. We want people to see the body of Christ. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and wives being submitted to your own husband. So until the next time, I am just excited and want to thank Apostle Michael Delaney and all of the staff that works with him, all of the staff that works with all of the BGK Network broadcasters. We are a family of broadcasters, Bible teachers, prayer warriors, ministry leaders, whatever it is, you can find us on BGK Network, and we are doing the work of the ministry. I am very happy that you have continued to support us on Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. And so, until the very next time, may I leave you with my two favorite words, which are, well, I'm not going to say them just yet. Can I just simply tell you, because I haven't said it to you in a while, that I do love you, and I love you with the love of Christ. So now I'm prepared to leave you with my two favorite words, which are love and peace. Until the next time, I'm Dr. Ramona Joseph, Dr. Mom, and this has been another edition of Let's Talk About Marriage and the Family. God bless.